If you've ever wanted to buy or sell an option contract using the underlying stock price as the trigger, then this is the video for you. ThinkorSwim happens to be one of the very few platforms out there that even lets us create an order this advanced, although it can be a little bit tricky when you're first getting started. So today we're going to be specifically diving into the ThinkorSwim mobile app and placing a few different option trades using the underlying stock price as our trigger. We'll be doing this on a brand new option trade, so essentially just buying an option contract, and then after we actually buy it, we're then going to be placing a stop loss order on that exact same option using the stock price as well. Now, of course, we're going to have to begin with our opening trade, so actually buying that contract, and we will first have to pull up the actual stock that we wanted to trade by coming up here to the search box in the upper right-hand corner. We can then type in the symbol of the stock, so in this case I'm typing in Apple or AAPL. I can then find and click on it in the list below. And then I am immediately taken to the stock profile page for Apple, where we can see a little bit more basic stock info about the stock and a nice little chart down here below as well. However, to pull up the option chain and find the option that we actually wanted to trade, we are going to first come up here to the center toolbar and click on the button marked Options. That will then display all of the available options expirations for Apple right down here below. And then we can come down here and actually open up one of these expirations. And for this example, let's just pick the 16 December expiration. So right here, I'm simply clicking on 16 December. And as soon as I do that, I can see a few of the available strikes for that expiration right down the center of the screen. So just for example's sake, let's say we were bullish on Apple stock. We thought the stock was going up. Well, in that case, one thing I could do is simply buy a long call option. And looking down here below at the list of available strikes, let's say I wanted to go out as far out of the money as I could. So in this case, I'm looking at the 145 call. If we were to actually take a closer look at that specific strike and we look to the left of it, we can actually see it currently has a bid ask of 273 or now 274 by 275. And remember, that's just the current price of that option right now. And in order for me to actually buy that option, I would simply find and click on the current asking price. So right here, I'm clicking on 275. That will then immediately take us to an order ticket to actually buy that option contract. And now right here, we can set our actual order parameters, which normally I would be basing this order off the option price. But in our case today, I want it to only submit if the stock price of Apple hits a certain price threshold. If we take a look at the top here, we can see that Apple is currently trading at 141.58, and we're saying we want to purchase the 145 call. Let's say I only wanted to submit this order if Apple goes above 145 a share. So to do that, to base this order off the underlying stock price, we're going to have to scroll down this order ticket a little bit. And then towards the bottom, we're going to find and click on the button marked Order Rules. If we then scroll down a little bit further, you can see a few different options now appeared, and these are actually the conditions that we can set for the order to be submitted or for the order to be canceled. So this could be based off not only the stock price, but it could also be based off things like volatility or a certain timing condition having to be met. However, for right now, we just want to submit this order based off the underlying stock price of Apple. So we're going to come down below and find the button marked Submit Market Condition, Submit on Market Condition, and then hit the little toggle to the right of it. We'll then get another little button where we can now add a condition, which is exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. You'll then see a little menu appear down here below, and at the moment it is pre-filled for the stock that we are currently looking at. So in this case, we're basing the order off the Apple stock price, which in this case is exactly what we want. But theoretically, you could come here and adjust it to whatever stock you wanted to. You could base this order off of Microsoft stock price or Facebook stock price, really whatever you wanted to use. But like I said, we are going to leave it as Apple. And if I scroll down a little bit, we can take a closer look at the next buttons here. So method, we're basing it off of the mark price of Apple. So I'm going to leave that be. I can then adjust the trigger. And in this case, I don't want it to be when it's at or below a certain price. I want it to be when it's at or above a certain price. So I'm going to go ahead and click the little arrow to the right of at or below. And now I can specify what price I want Apple to be before this order is submitted. So in this case, the price threshold, I'm going to adjust to 145. So right here, we'll go ahead and type in 145 and hit done. And now that the actual condition is set, I'm saying I do not want to submit this order until the actual stock price of Apple goes at or above 145 a share. And now if we were to scroll back up to the top, this is the order that's going to be submitted once that condition is met. So at the moment, if Apple actually goes above 145 a share, I'm going to be submitting a limit order to buy one contract at 269, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Remember, we have no clue what this contract is going to be trading for when Apple hits 145 a share. So the price that I currently have set right here of 269, now 268, that doesn't really make any sense since I have no idea what this option is going to be trading for when Apple hits 145. Now, in order to fix that, I could simply flip this order type over from a limit order to, let's say, a market order. So now I'm saying whenever Apple goes above 145, just submit a market order to buy this contract at whatever it's trading for at that time. However, since I'm pretty averse to submitting market orders on options, I actually still want to use a limit order. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this back over to limit. But now instead of putting a very specific price in here, we could actually base the price off of whatever that contract is trading for when Apple hits 145. Now I'll explain this a little bit more in depth in just a second, but in order to change that, we are first going to come over here to the left-hand side where it currently says manual. Go ahead and click on that. Within that little list down below, I'm then going to come and click on the button marked Mark. To the right-hand side, I now no longer see a very specific price. I actually see an offset amount, which currently says 10 cents, which for example's sake, I'm actually going to adjust down to, let's just say 0 cents for right now and hit done. But now that that's set, what does it actually mean? This means that whenever Apple hits 145 a share, I want to submit a limit order to buy this 145 call at whatever the mark price of that option is at that time. So let's say, for example's sake, Apple actually does go up to 145 a share, and this call is currently trading for $5 by $5.10. My order would be submitted to buy this option at $5.05, which is going to be the midpoint between the bid and asking price at that time. So the offset here, which I currently have set to 0, would allow you to put a slightly different price in than the exact mark. So if I were to instead change that from 0 cents to, let's say, 5 cents, and in that same exact example as before, where the mark is $5.05, and remember my order before would have gone in right at 5.05, now that I've got the offset set to 5 cents, my new order is going to go in at $5.10, 5 cents above the current mark price. Now, like I said, you don't have to do it this way. You could just use a market order, but since I don't like using market orders, this is the next best thing. It's really just saying I do want to get the contract and I do want to try and buy it right at that current price, but I want to try and get it at a fair price. I want to try and get the midpoint at that time. Now, the last thing I want to do is flip this time in force over from a day order, which just means if this does not fill by the end of the day, it's just going to cancel itself, and I'm going to flip it over to a GTC order, or good until canceled. So now this trade is working indefinitely. Once it's submitted, it's going to wait for Apple to move up to 145 a share, and if that does ever happen, we're going to submit this order to buy the 145 call. We could actually be done right there. We could go up and hit the review and send button and just submit the order and then see what happens. But let's also say that if that order fills, if we actually buy this call option, we then want to automatically get stopped out if the stock goes back down in value. So in order for us to attach a stop to this order, we're going to have to head back down to the very bottom of the order ticket. And this time we are going to find and click on the button marked Create Advanced Order. There we can now see our opening trade right up here at the top to actually buy that call option. And then down here below, we can attach an order to this one by hitting the little button on the left marked Add Order. That will then build out a closing order for this option. And now to edit it, we are simply going to click on it. We can then scroll down to the bottom of the page, just like in the previous example. And now we're going to set our order rules. So again, we're going to click on Order Rules right here. We're then going to look down below where it says Submit Conditions, and right now I currently have the Submit on Market condition, and it still says Apple, but this time I'm going to adjust it from at or above now to at or below. And now let's say that we want to exit this call option if Apple were to then fall back below, let's say 144 a share. So I'll now just click on the price threshold, and I'm going to adjust this to 144 and hit Done. Once the condition is set, we can now scroll right back up here to the top and then adjust the order ticket that we want submitted. So I'm going to leave it set to a limit order, but this time I'm going to come over to the word manual and go ahead and click on that. We're going to adjust it to the mark price just like before. I'm going to come over here and adjust the offset from negative 10 cents to 0 cents, just like before. I'm then going to adjust the time in force from a day order to a GTC order, so this order works indefinitely. And now that I've got everything filled out, what I'm essentially saying is, if we ever buy that 145 call, I then want to exit that call option if Apple then falls below 144 a share. So again, changing that to the mark with a $0 offset simply means that I want the limit order to go out there and get submitted based off of whatever that option is trading for at that time. Since like I said before, we really have no clue what that option is going to be worth when Apple crosses back below 144. But now that everything is filled out, in order to actually place those orders, we're going to come back up here and hit Group in the upper left-hand corner. We can now see our opening trade right up at the top, as well as our closing trade right below that. And remember, the closing trade is only going to get submitted once the opening trade actually fills. We can then find and click on the Review button in the upper right-hand corner to get our confirmation screen. And again, here it is simply telling us what we're about to do. We're placing an order to buy an Apple 145 call if Apple ever moves above 145 a share. And then if that ever happens, we actually buy that call option. I then want to put out an order to get me out or stop me out if Apple then moves back down below 144 share. Since it looks like I did fill everything out correctly, I can then come down here below and hit the send button to actually submit this order. And now that the order has been placed, in order for us to check on it, we can now come down here below and click on the Orders tab. Coming here, we can now see the working order right up there at the top to actually buy the contract. And again, that opening trade has to fill before the closing ticket goes out there. And if I ever wanted to edit or cancel those orders, I could simply click on it. Then from here, we could outright cancel the order by hitting Cancel Order, or we could edit it by hitting Cancel/Replace. But hopefully after all that, you now feel at least a little bit more comfortable with how to place options trades using the stock price. I know it seems like a lot, it seems very confusing, but with a little bit of practice, you will get the hang of it, I promise you. Now, if you are in the mood to learn more, I think you might find this next video helpful as well. Otherwise, have a great rest of your week, and I'll catch you on the next one.